Well, hi and welcome to this video. Today I'm shooting a secret location on the Isle of Skye. Now it's not a very visited place, so not many people come here to shoot. In fact, only the locals really come here at all. But it's absolutely beautiful and hopefully I'll get some great shots. So let's go down to the beach and see what we can find. If I don't trip over. I don't know if you can see, but there's a little bit of clear area just at the horizon, just behind me. And there are a few clear slots over my head, so I'm hopeful that I'll get something. It may not be the most spectacular sunrise, but there's certainly some lovely colours, quite subtle, but not the amazing colours you sometimes get at sunrise. Hey ho, we'll see what we get. So here's the result. Now, as I thought, the tones in the sky were very subtle. But I'd rushed the composition, and even though I like the colours in the foreground rocks and seaweed, it's a bit messy. So I tried a panoramic crop to see if it would simplify the composition. I think it's better, but the composition is still not great, and I think the colours really do lack some impact. So I decided to move slightly further along the beach to explore some barnacle covered rocks in the foreground. And only a few minutes later, the sunrise really started to happen. The clouds were lit up by the rising sun. And again I had to rush to find a composition using the rocks and the seaweed in the foreground and the colourful sky as a backdrop. And here's the first shot as the sky erupted with colour. Now I feel it's much better in almost every way than the first images, with a stronger composition, better colours and much more drama. Over the next few minutes I was treated to an amazing sunrise. Next, I tried a vertical composition to make more of the shapes and textures in the rock, and was lucky as the clouds lit up in just the right spot above the small island in the middle distance. Then I went back to a horizontal framing as the sky calmed down a little into some more subtle colours. Now for this shot, I went against every composition rule in the book and placed the horizon almost in the centre of the frame. Now I felt that the shape of the rocks at the bottom and the sky at the top of the frame mirrored each other almost perfectly, giving a really balanced image. There are also some beautiful colours in the sky and in the water. So now I was much happier with my morning than I had been just a few minutes before. Even though I was being harassed by the midges, I decided I would wait a little while for the sandy beach to be exposed by the tide. So I sat down for a much needed cup of coffee. By the time the tide had receded, the cloud had rolled in, and I could see rain falling on the mainland and out to the west. Now this may have put many people off staying around, but I knew that it could provide some really atmospheric conditions for the shots I had in mind. So I headed out towards a small seaweed covered rock that was now just becoming visible on the sandy beach. As the rock was still underwater, I used a 50mm lens so I could stand at the edge of the water and position it, along with a small island behind it, centrally in the frame. For this shot, I used a 5-stop ND filter to allow me to use a 30-second exposure to blur any ripples in the water, and also a 2-stop ND grad to darken the sky. Then I was really lucky, as a fleeting glimpse of sunlight lit up the small island and the foreground, which created the perfect contrast with the dark, menacing sky behind. As the tide receded, I was able to get closer to the rock and the seaweed in the foreground. But this meant that I had to use a 17mm lens to include all of the rock and the seaweed in the foreground. Now this change in viewpoint created a completely different perspective, with the foreground appearing much more dominant in the frame compared to the previous shot. Yeah, that rock and the seaweed is the same as this one. Using a different viewpoint has compressed the apparent distance between the three main objects in the foreground, middle ground and background in the shot, compared to the same three elements in this shot from much closer to the foreground rock. Now it just goes to show how a different viewpoint, and your lens, can make a huge difference to how your shot looks. And which do I prefer? Well, I think the wide-angle image is a much more striking composition and has a lot more impact in some ways. But I do love the light and contrast in the longer lens shot, so I think that's my favourite.
Well, that was an amazing day, so I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please like and subscribe, and please join me again when I'll be out shooting landscapes on the Isle of Skye or the Highlands. So take care, and I'll see you later.